Language ideologies. Now, language ideologies play a strong role in the construction of the identity also, and on language practices also. So, what do we mean by language ideologies? Language ideologies or any kind of ideology is a systematic way of thinking that is based on your attitudes, beliefs, values. So they interact with language ideologies in a cyclical way so that those ideologies that are playing around in the society affect individual attitudes, beliefs, and values. And then these cultural values, beliefs, and attitudes affect individual values and beliefs. So actually, when we talk about linguistic ideologies, then this would mean that these are systematic ways of thinking about languages. And then it is not just thinking about languages in a vacuum, it is thinking about languages in relation to their power or their prestige in relation to the other. For instance, a language ideology in Pakistan somehow gives a certain kind of prestige to English language, so much so that it is seen as that the language itself is superior to the other indigenous languages. Now, this is an example of language ideologies. Language actually represents socio-political systems, and when it represents socio-political systems, it gradually develops into language ideologies. These ideologies are definitely about domination of groups over each other. These are about power differential across different groups of people. These ideologies are about subordination of certain groups. And these ideologies also affect access to resources. For instance, coming back to the example of Pakistan, if you're giving out the best jobs on the basis of somebody's skill in English language, for instance, then this is some way affecting people who do not have the access to the learning of English language. So, since these ideologies are talking about resources, economic status, social status, it also has an effect on your own self-image. So the languages that you know and the languages that you're proficient in will have an effect on your own self-esteem, whether it might be positive or a negative one. So Bourdieu has done a lot of work on language as symbolic capital. That is, it is a kind of a capital which is not just there for communication, but it is seen as a symbol of a certain kind of class. The interesting thing is that he argues that the social space is a space where people struggle for access to resources which are always scarce, and it is the thing which is less that has a greater value. So what we do is, for instance, coming back to the example of Pakistan and coming back to the example of English language over in this context, so the schools that somehow help the students or help the learners with English language are the schools which have a very high fee. So while other schools also offer English language as a subject, they are seen or to be not so much good at it. So what comes by then is a class stratification that is somehow structured around this concept of language and so indigenous languages and those who know English language. So the role of schools over here becomes very important because what they perpetuate is what he calls a symbolic violence. That is, they are made to believe that people who are in positions of power and the people who have access to English language and are doing good, are actually naturally superior or naturally more talented, which is an extremely wrong idea. It's a misrecognition of what is going on. The whole point is about giving a different type of access to different type of classes in terms of their opportunities to learn a language that has high prestige. So Blommaert, again a big name in the field, argues that language helps produce the socio-political systems, and it is affected by the socio-political systems as well. And it is done by what people say, but also by what people do not say. It is again, it comes by what people do, but also by what people do not do, because these are kind of assumptions, taken for granted assumptions on which interactions are based. So nobody questions them because they are not there out there to be questioned. Rather, they work at a subliminal level. So research in language ideologies focuses on sociohistorical, sociocultural, and socioeconomic contexts. It looks at the process by which language ideologies are developed and how they affect us, and how their meaning is produced through discourse and through choice of languages. And then it also talks about how the access to linguistic resources affects your identity construction. Role of schools, as I said, is central to the whole system, to the development of certain ideologies. So when we also as language teachers tell our students not to speak in any other language but English language, then we legitimize the existing ideologies without actually realizing what we are doing. When we believe that those who know English language are the best students or more intelligent, as my research shows, then again we are constructing those ideologies without actually knowing the damage we are doing. So parental choices in schools are also reflective of those ideologies. So all those boards you see in Pakistan of low-fee private school systems that boast themselves to be English medium is again related to language ideologies. And when we talk about bilingual education, this is what it is aimed at. It is aimed at undoing those ideologies and restoring the prestige of local languages.